Is the Central Coast a good place to buy an investment property in 2019 or even early 2020? Hi, it's Nero here from Investment Rise, and over the last few months as we've been helping people find investment properties in great growth locations where the rent covers the mortgage and where the property is really easy to get rented, I often get asked, Nero, what about the Central Coast? Is that a good place to buy in? Because after all, prices in most parts of the Central Coast are far cheaper than Sydney. And there's no doubt that's true, but the question to ask yourself is buying in the Central Coast a great prospect for future capital growth? And one of the things that I look at is what do valuers think about a particular area? Because a valuer is, so when you go for a bank loan, the bank will approve a loan subject to a bank valuation. And then they send out the bank valuers to determine if the price that you're paying, the price that you've agreed to pay, is the property worth that price. So it's well worth watching what valuers think about an area, because ultimately they're the ones who are determining the price of a property, from at least from a bank perspective when you're going to get a loan. And in the latest Heron Todd White residential report, they express a lot of concerns about the Central Coast market. In particular, they call out a couple of areas like Woy Woy and Umina Beach, which have both dropped between 10 to 15%. Gosford, prices have dropped there as well. In fact, there's a lot of concern about the unit market, especially close to the CBD in Gosford. Although we don't expect there to be a lot of oversupply. According to SQM research, the market in Gosford is not an oversupply, but prices have dropped. I've had a number of people reach out to me over the last few months who said, Nero, we bought this off the plan unit for say $600,000, and now that it's getting close to completion and the bank has to value the property, the bank's saying, sorry, we don't think it's worth $600,000 anymore. It's only now worth say $550,000. So what does then the buyer have to do? They've either got to come up with the difference between the bank valuation of $550,000 and the purchase price of $600,000, or they've got to forego and give up their 10% deposit, or $60,000 in this case. So it's a scary prospect for someone who wants to invest to get ahead, and all of a sudden they're finding that their investing actually going behind, or being left behind financially. And if you think about it, Gosford, most parts of Central Coast, they follow Sydney's price trend. So over the last couple of years, we know that prices in Sydney have dropped like a stone. Thankfully, as a result of the recent rate drops, that rate of price dropping has slowed significantly. Many suburbs are going flat, and some suburbs are showing a bit of an uptick in price. However, when that happens and when prices have dropped so much, the question is, well, why would the price in Central Coast rise in value? Because after all the jobs, well, at least the vast majority of jobs anyway, are in Sydney. So most people are moving out to the Central Coast, are doing so for affordability, but that commute can be very, very rough. So as long as all the jobs are still in Sydney, and with prices now being a lot more affordable, I think what you'll see is that the group of people, or the people who are moving to the Central Coast, that's going to really reduce a lot more. I'm not saying people won't necessarily move to the Central Coast, but the numbers will reduce. The demand for property up there relative to supply will actually be less, so there'll be less demand than supply. So I'm not expecting a lot of price growth in and around the Central Coast for the next few years. Really what you'll need to wait and see is when does Sydney grow in value? When Sydney prices start growing in value, when they start to again become unaffordable for the average person in Sydney. I mean, they still are fairly unaffordable. We're talking about it becoming even more unaffordable. When you start seeing a lot more people start moving to the Central Coast, that's really when you'll start to see the price rises. Unless, of course, there's a change in New South Wales government policy, unless they start putting a lot more jobs up there, I don't expect a lot of Central Coast property price growth. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you found this video valuable and you're thinking you might like my help to help you find an investment property, then head on over to nerocall.com to discover our unique 5-step process that's helped my private client group purchase now well over $66.2 million worth of property. And then if you like what you see, you can book in for a free half-hour phone consult with me personally. Either way, thanks again for watching.